So in this video, which I'm very excited about, we are going to go over mastering your higher mental powers and becoming the master of your fate and the captain of your soul. Let me ask you something. Are you familiar with this famous quote from the poem Invictus? It was written by William Ernest Henley. Invictus means unconquered in Latin, and the last lines of the poem say, "It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishments, the scroll. I am the master of my fate, and I am the captain of my soul." In other words, it really doesn't matter what is happening in my life or the cards that I have been dealt, because we've all been dealt cards. I can master the situation. I do this by understanding and applying with great skill my higher mental powers. So let's get into it. We all have 6 higher mental powers. Did you know that? If you don't feel bad. This is not typically taught in mainstream educational systems. And I would say around the world, it's not taught. We have 5 of these higher mental powers on the conscious level of thinking. And I would say one of them, the 6th one, which I will go over with you, is more super conscious level of thinking. So again, you can check out my video where I cover the different levels of consciousness or mind. So let's get into the first higher mental power, and that is imagination. So what is imagination? It's the ability to see with your mind's eye, right? It's different from seeing with your physical eyes. Now I want you to think about something. We are only limited by our poverty of imagination. Notice how poverty is used in this quote. I believe it's from Neville Goddard. He's an amazing teacher on the mind. Poverty and riches aren't just about what we materially possess or have in our lives. Poverty and riches is also how well do we access the wealth that is actually within us already, because it's linked to the divine. Do you see? Let me ask you, can you imagine more freedom? Can you imagine more access? Can you imagine more health? And can you imagine more love, more abundance? Can you imagine more prosperity? Can you simply just imagine, let's say, a different environment? Can you imagine the circumstances that you actually want? This will open up a whole new door of possibility for you just by simply imagining differently. Okay? The second higher mental power is the will. Now, we're not talking about will in terms of how much you can force something. It's actually related to what we focus on mentally, emotionally, vibrationally, physically. What do we focus on, right? For example, our will can be utilized to focus on a task that needs to be finished, or our will can be used on focusing on what is good, what is actually working, what I actually do have. But you see how majority of the population, they can focus on the opposite, right? They can be very distracted and very indecisive, or they only focus on what they don't have, what is not working, right? Or what is bad in the world or in their relationships or in their situation. So focus, or the will, is very, very powerful. It will literally change your energy at that given moment if you were to just focus on something different. The third higher mental power is the power of reason. Now, we're not just talking about intellectualizing, reasoning things. We're actually talking about the power to choose a thought, right? It can be so simple as choosing that I can versus choosing I cannot. I can choose the thought between I have the leads or choose the thought I don't have the leads. I hope you see where I'm going with this, right? I can choose the thought between I am wealthy, I choose being wealthy, or I choose the opposite, right? Or the choice between the reason, choosing the thought of I am surviving or I am thriving, right? Choosing between being with someone, being connected, or being disconnected and just being alone. We all have the power of choice. It's a matter of choosing I am healthy or choosing the thought that I am not healthy. So really think about, what do you usually choose in terms of your thoughts? All right? So now we're going into perception. This is the fourth higher mental power. Perception is the way we understand things, right? You can see, you and another person can look at, let's say, an occurrence that happened in the neighborhood, and you can perceive them completely differently depending on who you are, what your background is. So two people can look at the exact same thing and perceive them differently from each other. Like, for example, you can have a glass that is halfway full, right? One sees it, or just halfway in the glass, just be like, if I'm trying to be as neutral and objective when describing that. One person will perceive that as being halfway full, and the other one will see it as being halfway empty. So here's a kind of like a philosophical question. Who is right and who is wrong? What if both are right and both are wrong? It comes down to the choice, going back to even reason, the higher mental faculty of reason. It is the choice in perception. Oftentimes, for example, we can perceive something that feels like a curse is actually a blessing in disguise. You may have heard of that term, that phrase, right? But we can only see the blessing in hindsight. One very powerful change in perception for myself that I want to share with you in this video is when I finally started really realizing that we don't see the world or a situation as it truly is. We see the world, the situation, as we are. The other way that's been described to me, right, in my journey and my maturation, I would say, is like, for example, if you have like a squabble between two people, right? One person perceives it as one way, the other party perceives it as another way, and the truth of what the situation is somewhere in between, right? You may relate to that, okay? Now let's go into the higher mental faculty, the fifth one, and that is memory. And I really want to break down this word memory so we have a deep understanding of it. We tend to give meaning to memory as going back, let's say, to an image, going back to what happened before, right? Again, it's in the imagination, in the past, but we can actually create memories for the future, and they are called future memories, right? Like, what a shift in perception, right? So this faculty, or this higher mental power, by which this is how we store information in the mind, and this is how we remember information in the mind. So let's look at the word remember, right? To remember means to become a member of. Again, means repeat. Member is to become a part of. So when we remember a memory, we're becoming a part of a stored information in our mind. Cool? All right. And that stored information does not have to be about past happenings, positive or negative, right? A memory can be a new vision that we create. And when we create this new vision, we store this new creation in our mind, and we can remember, become a member of it again whenever we choose, right? Very interesting. And this reminds me of when I did a training with a law firm staff, and it was run by a very successful 7-figure earning attorney. And when we gathered the staff together, we did a future memory exercise. And what I asked the staff is, what do you see for yourself, like, 2 to 5 years out? And there happened to be a woman who was pregnant. And when we ended the visualization, she could see like her lifestyle. She could see many things very clearly. You could tell by the way she was communicating it when she shared with the group. And she said something that was very powerful, and I wanted to share it with you in this video. She said, I can now go back to that memory whenever I want to. And you could tell this vision, and she actually divulged, the leader didn't even know this, the owner of the law firm didn't even know this, that she really wanted to be partner. I think she was like a legal aid at the time. And that was good news for the owner of the law firm, because now she knows who she can cultivate and bring on as partner in the near future. But this woman who was very pregnant, she literally said, I now have this memory. She created it, right? She didn't have to experience it from the past. She just created the ever-present now. I can now go back to this memory whenever I want to. And it was a very inspired memory, right? So let's recap. This is more on the conscious level, higher mental powers. That is imagination. We just went over memory. There is perception. There is focus. And then there is the power of choice or reason. This is all very conscious level of thinking. The 6th higher mental power is what you call intuition. I'm sure you all have heard of this word. And this is a huge one. This is the way that we receive instructions from a higher source of intelligence, right? And Napoleon Hill named this higher source of intelligence infinite intelligence. I really think about that amazing term, I guess you would say. Infinite, meaning there's no end to this intelligence. That is very powerful. And you, my friend, are infinite, okay? Infinite intelligence can also be considered as universal mind. Just take note of that, universal mind. Therefore, intuition is more along the lines of a super conscious mental tool and power. It's not just conscious, it's really beyond your level of understanding. This is very important. So how do we tap into this higher level of understanding? We associate it with our gut or our second brain. So for those of you who are familiar with the chakras, right, the different energy systems that was made popular in the West but known for thousands of years in the East, you will know that we have 7 major energy systems, and one of them is called the solar plexus, and it's right around the area of your stomach. And here is a fun fact. Your stomach, or the abdomen actually, has more neurons than your actual brain right here in the cranium. And your brain has the same digestive enzymes that are in your stomach. So when we say that I'm trying to digest information, you literally are. I want you to just know that, right? And the crown chakra, or this one right here, and your solar plexus, which is right here in your stomach area, are very much interconnected. So we are actually always using our 6 higher mental powers, though for majority of the population, it is through default. It is not through conscious design. So why is this? It's because we were never taught, number 1, they exist, and number 2, their value and their role in, wait for it, the creation of reality. That's right, the creation of reality, right? Majority of the population were never empowered to think in this way. So I want you to think about it. Like, how many of you have been taught how to imagine effectively? Let me give you an example. When was the last time you worried? What is worry? We are imagining all of the bad things that could happen, right? So basically, worry is the misuse of the imagination. How many of you were taught how to increase your mental agility by looking at a problem or situation from a different perception. I would say majority of the population have a hard time focusing. This is the will, because we live in a very stimulated world, overrun with information. Okay, so it's a new skill set to become selective and discerning on the information we gather. I will say that whatever you choose to gather with information wise, if it's related to mastering your fate and becoming the captain of your soul, I would say that that would take priority for you, right? So what's really controlling how majority of people think is default thought processes, default programming, you could say, in the subconscious and unconscious mind. And until a person, a soul, takes lead on a conscious level and directs the imagination conscientiously, directs the will conscientiously, and the perceptions conscientiously, the memories conscientiously, choosing thoughts with reason conscientiously, and then cultivates their intuition conscientiously, then their subconscious and unconscious programming will control what they focus on and their willingness to even expand and go there in imagination. So I come across people who literally will limit themselves simply from not imagining bigger. And that invisible chain around their mind is related to their subconscious mind, their subconscious programming. So until a person wakes up and decides to command, to become the captain, to become the master of the higher mental powers, then that person is ready to truly master their fate and become the captain of their soul. I will tell you this, that it is simple actually, right? Like it's simple. Let me just imagine. It's simple. Well, what do I focus on with my will? It's simple. Well, what do I choose to perceive? It's kind of very black and white if you think about it. It is simple and it is not easy because it will take training and it will take guidance. One of my mentors has said before, you got to be really, really bad at something at first in order to get really, really good. Because let's really talk about the science behind this. We're talking about on any given day, a person will go through 70,000 thoughts average on any given day. 98% of them is purely automatic thinking on the subconscious and unconscious level of mind. So that means there are automatic imaginings, there are autopilot perceptions and memories that keep playing over and over again. There are autopilot choices, meaning autopilot use of the reasoning higher mental power. So I think you get what I'm saying here. This brings me to the next point, that all of these 6 tools are like double-edged swords, right? Each higher mental power, and they are powers, can be used for you or against you. They can be used to create a great heaven in your life, in your physical life, mental life, spiritual life, or a hell in your life, or it could be something in between, right? So the more that you get skilled at utilizing these 6 higher mental tools, the greater command you'll have over your experiences, and you will begin to truly master your fate and become the captain of your soul. So please like and subscribe. Leave your comments below what your greatest takeaways were for this video, and I will see you in the next video.